pictures of the three of them all together. I want to say the one I'm thinking about is Yalta.
Yalta? Yeah. Can we pull that up? Yalta Conference?
It's the Israelis went in to get him. They actually wore gloves because they didn't want their hands to be on the body of this reviled person. They didn't want any part of him, his DNA, touching their DNA, which I thought was really powerful. And here's the thing, to write that, again, you have to go into the minds of the guys who were doing the kidnapping. And then you also have to go into the mind of this guy who did all these terrible things. Now he's hiding in Argentina. He's trying to raise a family. And he worked in I think a Volkswagen factory or something like that. He was just a regular guy. So am I going to sympathize with him now because he's just a guy trying to raise a family, just like me? Or is like, yeah, but he did all these things to all these people and he has to pay. And so it makes for a little, moral back and forth.
Of course.
Yeah.
How did these guys get out, though, too? Like, so many of them, so many high-level people.
Yeah.
Just escaped to places and lived, sometimes uncaught for the rest of their
For
life.
a long time. I was in the Argentine city of Bariloche one time, which is way inland. And it looks like you're in Germany. Everything there looks so Teutonic. And
it's not reassuring.
Yeah. So it's like they found a way out, and I think things were planned well ahead of time. People knew where to go. One of the ways out was Genoa. Was one of the things, but we helped a lot of these people too. Don't forget that.
Yes.
So we wanted, the whole NASA space program was Nazi scientists.
You don't say.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah, right.
That's like one of the ultimate moral, dilemma doesn't even begin to describe it. But you ever read Devil's Chessboard by Talbot?
Yeah.
You should read that.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Because, I hadn't known this till before I read that book, but I hadn't known it till shortly before I read that book, how much like the Dulles brothers were in bed with the Nazis for a long time. And then when the war broke out and Germany declared war on the U.S., they were basically like, all right, all right. You want us to we'll go to war with them. But they weren't excited about it.
Right. Well, and Patton wanted to keep going because he knew the Soviets were the next threat. So when he pushed into Czechoslovakia and Eisenhower had to tell him to stop, he was like, let's take all these Nazis and put a uniform on them, have them fight with us because we're going to fight the Soviets sooner or later.
Oh, that's the other thing too. It's like that was the unholy alliance because the Soviets were critical to winning World War II, and yet America and the UK and some other countries as well, but particularly those two, were always completely concerned about the Bolsheviks dating back to the 1920s.
What to me is one of the saddest, getting back to Churchill real quick, is when towards the end of the war, one of Roosevelt's great flaws was the fact that he trusted Stalin. And towards the end of the war, he began turning his back on Churchill and Great Britain because he thought Stalin was America's friend and they were going to...
He really thought that?
He really did. And if you look at pictures of the three of them all together, I want to say the one I'm thinking about is Yalta.
Yalta? Yeah. Can we pull that up? Yalta Conference?
It's... Churchill looks like he's just happy to be there. And Stalin looks like he's the boss in a very old, visibly fading. If you see this picture in color.
The third one.
Yeah.
Up there. Yep, perfect.
See, look how like that's just a few months before Roosevelt dies. Mm-hmm. Look how ill he looks. But clearly the man in charge is Stalin there on the right.
Do you think that Roosevelt was, I don't know, maybe, what's the word I'm looking for, moved by the enormous sacrifice of life, let's say, that the Soviets had made?
I'm sure there was something to that.
Yeah.
But from a pragmatic point of view, you think about it, they wouldn't allow our planes to land in Soviet territory. And they began holding people prisoner, keeping people prisoner towards the end of the war. A lot of
U.S. people?
No, not U.S. people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all
but
right.
people, the Germans, Hungarians, all the people on that side, they went to war and never came back. So he was doing a lot of things at that time which were just not in line with U.S. policies, but he was willing to bend a lot to ignore things like that. Like the simple fact that, we gave through the Lend-Lease thing, we gave them, trucks and clothes and all sorts of stuff, and there was no reciprocity on his part other than committing his troops to being the first to Berlin. But the only reason he wanted to be the first one to Berlin, which we gave to him, was because it was revenge for what Hitler had done.
Yeah.
And, the fall of Berlin, as you know, is just horrifying what they did to the people.
So what does FDR see in him then? If he's he's just a fucking friendly guy when he's around him? Like, what is it?
I honestly don't understand this, because FDR is the world's consummate political animal. He understands real politics like nobody else. And I think what he saw was Britain was on its knees at the end of the war. They were an impoverished nation. They had lost, tons of men, but they were just poor, and they suffered from the war for a long time. Whereas the Soviet Union was this dynamic force that was the equal of the United States. And I think he was trying to put us in a position to be in an alliance with them. But Stalin, as you know, had no intention of an alliance.
Nor did FDR's entire government and bureaucracy, apparently.
Yeah. Well, and then when he dies, I think Truman was a great president, because he came in and he turned everything around right away. Like, he stood up to to Stalin from day one. He had no fear of him. So
maybe they whacked FDR.
No,
I'm kidding.
His arteries were so clogged they couldn't even get a needle in to embalm his body.
Yeah, he was a sickly guy.
He was super sick.
Very sickly. It's kind of crazy that he hung in there for so long in power, too. I guess he was in power for 14, 15 years, something like that.
32 through 45.
Yeah,
so,
13. Yeah.
But, he made bad martinis. He didn't drink too much, but he smoked like a fish. And plus, with his illness, him not being able to really move around too much, it was only a matter of time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy, though, because it is, if you look at just from a military standpoint, when I've looked at this history, I'm grateful he was the guy in charge, because what it seems like to me is he really did let his generals be generals.
He did.
And lead the war and be on the ground and know what's going on and give them the power to litigate the war.
And curiously, that was not Churchill. Churchill was a notorious meddler, and he was always coming up with schemes and let's do this, let's do this. He was always going to the front lines, and it probably one of the reasons Roosevelt trusted George Marshall completely, and Marshall ran the war. Is his proxy, I think, is the best way to put it. So, but you never heard of Roosevelt coming up with a battle plan.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen history about that.
You never, no.
He wasn't the architect of D-Day, I know that.
Just crazy.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.